Delves are shaping up to be World of Warcraft's biggest and best addition to the game in years. It's just that the shaping part, it's ongoing. Hey, it's Sol, and this is Warcraft Weekly, the Delve edition. You can help support the channel by liking this video, subscribing for more WoW coverage and commentary, and watching me wherever I'm live. So let's talk. Delves are one of WoW's more transformative features, debuting in the latest expansion, The War Within. With it came the hope and promise of bona fide solo progression content with rewards to match, including cosmetics and player power. When announcing it, the team was so confident, they said this would be evergreen content, a permanent fixture in the WoW space. They didn't make a claim like that with the likes of, like Torghast or Warfront or Horrific Visions and so on and so forth, and I share their confidence. I think Delves overall are great. It's a game changer, and we're going to talk about what it means for one of World of Warcraft's most significant audiences. We can't ignore it's got issues though, and we're going to talk about that too, and this is ongoing. As I write this, changes are on the way to some harsh reactions to another recent hotfix from the team, and they're saying, quote, "It's a top priority for us and we expect to deploy further fixes later today." But before we even get to the commentary, I want to call out two viewpoints, two ways we as players are looking at Delves. I'm purposely oversimplifying with two kinds of viewpoints for the sake of argument. Many of us who are used to WoW endgame are looking at Delves as one of the steps of endgame. It's a path to easy gear equal to normal raids. It's a much better, it's a far superior gearing path to Mythic Zeros. Like really, what the heck are those for outside of practice for Mythic Plus right now? With this easy boost to gearing, lots of folks were slamming Delves, and they were able to push to higher difficulties to get this gear, and they'll continue doing so until it's been squeezed dry, and then these players are going to move on to higher end Mythic Plus and raids and so on and so forth. So in short, for many players, Delves are merely a step in the season journey. The other group of players I want to put a spotlight on are those who look at Delves as a new endgame that they've never had before. So what do I mean by that? For a long time, solo content in World of Warcraft was limited, it was gimmicky, it was temporary. For years, segments of the community had wanted the world to feel a bit more challenging, which is a vague statement, right? That could mean anything from slowing leveling speed to downtime between mobs to wanting questing to feel a little bit harder while leveling to, more elite outdoor world content and so much more. I'm gonna try and condense that whole thought into just this. I think players want a feeling of being challenged, followed by feeling accomplished for overcoming that challenge with a cool prize at the end. Dragonflight Endgame, it brought us the likes of Grand Hunts and Time Rifts and Soup, which delivered on rewards, but that doesn't give the same opportunity of firing off a number of abilities or cooldowns to smash enemies, basically some urgency or threat of danger. But not everyone wants that from the outdoor world either. It's the impossible problem that Blizzard is always going to have with a player base as diverse as this, and one of many reasons challenging solo content has been spotty up until now. The Mage Tower from Legion, hey, that was overall well received, but limited to a single challenge per specialization. The Brawlers Guild comes and goes, but it hasn't been around in a while. Horrific Visions, that only lasted for a patch, while Torghast, it lasted for a whole expansion, but it limited its power rewards to a few select slots of gear, and it didn't turn out to be a place that players could effectively live in for, to be like an alternate endgame for power. Delves aren't perfect either, but it's a leap into fully supported solo endgame, and the player reactions so far have been largely positive when we at least separate the tuning criticism. Again, I'm not saying that it's not there, I'm just setting it aside for now. Delves are a game changer because it fills a hole that's been in the game for 20 years, endgame progress for solo players, where there are no timers, and Delves can be reset without penalty other than, of course, the time that's lost. There is a bit of currency management with keys to get progressively better gear and a death penalty, but keys are only spent when you decide to use them, and there's guaranteed loot from the Great Vaults, even if it took all week to clear only 2 Delves and there were dozens of deaths in between. Difficulty aside, what we get is this progressive experience. The tougher the content, the greater the reward on your time and your pacing. It's difficult but not punishing, as in we don't lose keys, there's no keystone that gets depleted or whatever, there's no one to yell at and no one to yell at you if you're going solo, and eventually gamers will settle in some place where each week they're going to have a handful of keys to use and they can choose which bountiful delves they want to do for progression on the delve seasonal track, or maybe it's a busy week for them and they just need vault gear. So they'll just do like 2 quick runs of their favorite delve at their preferred difficulty, and then ta-da, there's vault loot. I'll see you next week. Delves have quickly established themselves as a bona fide content pillar, and there's still plenty of non-combat activities around the world within, in Kazalgar that give rewards. Now gamers wanting a solo progressive experience can have a place where they can, in fact, live in. I know I'm saying the same thing a bunch of times, but I'm just looking at Delves as this really big win. While the concept and potential of Delves are there, the tuning and execution of Delves in this first week have been in a very weird, or aka it's been in a bad place. It started with them being in a different sort of bad place, and by that I mean the scaling, depending on group size, it just didn't make sense. According to streamer Sloot and published by Wowhead throughout the week, Delves were easier with a group of 2 people because the game would scale health and damage values kind of funny. Regardless, with a group of 5, high-level Delves were still what one would consider easy because of the added throughput and utility. This was amplified on social media and elsewhere in the community, gamers of notable skill sharing anecdotes of how easy, quote easy, it is to farm up champion gear. Like, hey dudes, look at my vault, it's all filled up with hero choices for next week, or hey look guys, I got another level 8 thing, Delver's Bounty, and I got a piece of hero gear already. It gave a sort of impression, a sort of expectation among players. Yesterday, just the night before, Blizzard retuned Delves to scale, quote, normally with larger groups, which ended up making them harder for these full groups. Other critiques came from solo players too, notably non-tanks who just couldn't handle multiple mobs beating their faces in while casting spells. Blizzard's response was to tune down the magic damage, which helps a little bit, while in a way it also told players to be a little bit better about controlling the battlefield with crowd control and kiting and otherwise careful pulls. There's one wild change that even I, your local copium dealer, couldn't explain my way out of. There are these lieutenant style mobs seen normally in higher delves. They started showing up in 8s, and these guys by and far are stronger than even the bosses of these delves. In fact, in my more recent clears, I didn't even bother fighting. I used like an invisibility potion, or I ran ahead to the next spawn point and then died to effectively skip past them and other mobs. There have been some updates, and as of this writing, they're ongoing, and I likely have missed a few details. The super tough lieutenant mobs no longer spawn in tier 8s, and the damage to players in delve groups, larger groups, that's gone down. However all this turns out, I don't envy the WoW team trying to cleverly balance delves because there's all sorts of factors to consider. Like, think about what they're doing here. Any given delve ought to be completable solo. Every class, every spec, and it needs to also recalculate for group size and comp, including weird-ass comps like having multiple tanks and healers, because, any of those things could influence the scaling. Like, what's the difference between a 3-mage team versus 2 prop paladins and an evoker healer? Or maybe delves would have been easier to balance if the party size was limited to just 2 or 3 people, but no one really wants that. I can safely say that everyone just wants delves to work. As a commentator trying to get a gauge of players' sentiment, it's been a challenge trying to fully digest the feedback. We've been hearing a lot from those who take part in traditional endgame. That makes sense, that's what we've always had up until now. And endgame players, of course, they ought to enjoy delves too, right? But I can't help but feel like the feedback is a bit skewed towards higher performing players, especially because of their influential presence on social media, and it threatens to warp the intent of delves. Like, delves are content for everyone, but they certainly have a primary target audience, the solo and small group player who is used to at best getting like veteran gear and maybe something champion stuff from the world boss. With the season unleashing soon, the Raiders and Mythic Plus world, they're gonna swing by and visit delves, but what we're going to see/not see in the world within is this emergent audience who are living inside delve content. It's gonna be a very diverse group, from people just trying out 4s to those clearing Zekvir using a steering wheel, but funny enough, I don't see this community having a very large or a very strong voice. Mythic Plus, it suddenly created this massive community centered around its endgame. Delves won't have that kind of success because there's no infinite scaling difficulty, and more importantly, there's no need to group, so that sense of cooperative competition might not be there. Still, the input from every side has been important, and it'll ultimately make delves better for everyone, but it's worth just taking a step back and to look to divide the feedback between those who have been actively doing endgame and those who are not or have never done endgame before, because, well, the difference from this feedback, it's like night and day. For a lot of players, this is a brand new thing and it's got people interested. A lot of folks say war bands are the War Within's biggest feature, and I don't disagree, but with respect to the solo player in the form of delves and follower dungeons and patron orders and story mode raids, World of Warcraft has undergone this huge change, including rolling out this big old welcome mat for new players who might at first feel intimidated by us grizzled veterans. Now they have something to do without worrying about people like us. But I do want to hear from you. Like, what do you think of delves? And especially I want to hear from those of you who have stayed away from most group content. Now that takes up most of the show, other than to bring up some discussion points we could have down in the comments. This is a weird start to the season, right? With the heroic week out, but not Mythic Plus for early gearing. On the other hand, we have delves, which does not include the endless farm that keys have, but it's definitely better than Mythic Zeros right now. Personally, I wonder if it would have been better to just have Mythic Plus this week. I'm half and half, like, sure, why not have them start sooner, but also, well, the next seasons aren't going to have this kind of delay either. I think Blizzard was trying to create a start of expansion experience that wasn't all go, 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 and those of us who are go, 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 maybe we're a little bit rattled. Hotfixes and class tuning are on the way, and I'll go over that in the reminder video, and I'll include some tips and tricks to surviving in delves after everything that I've learned this week. I'll be genuinely curious to see how the delve discourse is going to be going by then. Maybe it'll turn out to be very quiet, not because delves are dead, but that the people who run delves are just not the loudest or most prominent voices in the community. Or maybe they are dead, but I don't think Raider.io can or will track something like that. I was hearing about this gummy worm promotion thing here in the US that gives different tabards depending on what store you bought these things from. A few folks asked if I was willing to get them codes in exchange for compensation, and I mean, you know, it's okay what Blizzard's doing. This isn't so different from toys in the cereal box, although more accurately, maybe it's like, you know, how a few years back where if you buy a game from a certain retailer, it comes with exclusive skins if you buy it from them. But whatever the case, I'm not going to participate most likely. I'm just going to wait for this to go on the trading post as usual. Imagine though, if this was like coffee though, like, yeah, then I would end up with a pallet of the stuff as long as you guys ended up paying for it. Anyway, there's a Sunny tabard that I did get, but that's because I was able to do it via website, and I'll provide a Wowhead link that gives instructions on how to do it. We're going to stop here and start looking forward to next week for the 4th time the War Within is launching, this time with story mode and Mythic Plus and Mythic Raids, unleashing the season, and we can finally start playing the game. Let's give a hearty shout out to the family watching me live on Twitch and YouTube. Your guys' company has been absolutely great. To our amazing patrons, thank you for keeping the lights on, and to you, the Algorithm Squad, thanks for making it to the end and making these videos more visible. Please stay tuned for next week's guide and coverage as we learn more about the new season and the upcoming patch. And of course, like the video, subscribe for more, catch me live, and I'll catch you later. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay breezy.